In trying to learn about adolescent development, we've discussed four major theories of learning. They include Vygotsky's sociocultural theory, Piaget's cognitive observational learning, and operant conditioning. The four aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, and it's easy to see that all four are still relevant. Although Piaget and Vygotsky felt that their theories conflicted with each other, they rather complement each other, so I'll be discussing those. Piaget's theory includes the idea that there are four stages of cognitive development. Infants are developing their sensory motor cognition. Toddlers and young children are working on their pre-operational abilities, including the ability to understand symbols. Between 7 and 11, children are learning logical skills, called concrete operations, and the children can begin to understand abstract concepts around the age of 11. This means that children under the age of 11 can't reverse concepts very well, or make projections based on the information they have. Children have a hard time with reflective exercises or distant planning before the age of, again, roughly 11. And when they're learning the concrete operations before they have that ability, that does tend to involve more hands-on work. Although the students certainly still have imagination, it can't be expected of them to have a realistic image of their own life in the distant future, or what they would think about the present at that time. They will also have difficulty understanding things from another person's point of view. Another thing Piaget discussed was how we construct mental schemas that explain our worldview based on the knowledge we have so far, and that these generally need to be kind of taken down and reconstructed when we receive new information, if it conflicts with what we already know. Students that have difficulty changing their mental schema should be encouraged to investigate other viewpoints and to encourage them to be more flexible in learning and thinking. Vygotsky studied the mental development of children, including how they play and speak and the relationship between thought and language. He found that infants don't have internal speech because they don't necessarily understand language, and at the point where children are starting to internalize their language skills, they will speak constantly while they're playing, essentially speaking out loud at all times.
When I wonder why I left it to I always like why I left it to that's what
the language tends to be internalized at about the age children typically start school. Because language and thought are so closely connected, a child's learning is affected by their own language and their own culture. So a student's social interactions are what they learn from, and there are going to be differences between the students because of this. The concept of internalizing an idea is also important to Vygotsky's theory. A child starts learning a concept by imitating, then imitating and understanding, then they internalize the concept. Vygotsky calls the range where a child can't do something on their own a zone of proximal development, or ZPD. As long as they can do it with support, they will gradually understand and master a concept, and the support can be gradually removed. A common example is learning to ride a bike with training wheels. If the student can't ride a bike with training wheels, they'll require a parent to guide them. Once they can ride a bike with training wheels, the parental support can be removed. And once they have mastered the riding, the training wheels can also be removed. At this point, they have fully understood the concept of riding the bike. As educators, you need to know how to recognize how students will gradually internalize a concept by having you as a mentor and by having support. Then they will have that support removed as they internalize the concept. When teaching a class, it can be hard to know when to move on after a concept has been demonstrated. What you can do is allow students to use scaffolding if they feel they need it. For example, in a math class, you could allow them to use calculators or manipulatives whenever they need to. But once they feel they are comfortable with the concept, they should be able to move past the need for these tools. And this should be encouraged. You could say, when you think you understand, try it again without the algebra tiles, or without your calculator. Piaget and Vygotsky approach learning in different ways. Piaget discusses in depth how the child's learning works, but he didn't highlight the role of a mentor or a teacher of any kind. Vygotsky does not discuss the actual mental development, but rather the general acquisition of a new concept or skill. Both believe there would always be certain concepts outside of a student's region of understanding, but Vygotsky supposed that students could perform these tasks with help or assistance, and this is not really factored into Piaget's theory at all. While Vygotsky's theories lend themselves well to teaching strategies, Piaget's theory appears to show a preference for discovering-based learning done by the student themselves.